What's going on, everyone? Coach Aaron here, back in another video to help you dominate a platform. Today we're going to go over the forearm angle in the bottom of the bench press so you can have an efficient and strong bench press. So let's get right to it. Alrighty everyone, welcome back to another video and thank you for tuning into the channel. If you're new to the channel and you don't know who I am, my name is Aaron Khamesi and I'm a powerlifting coach, athlete, referee, and meet director. So I make videos here on this channel for those groups of people. Alright, I just made a video going over a bench press quick tip on the starting position and where the bar should be over your body when you are starting. And it's the same thing obviously when you are finishing, okay? We want that starting and finishing point to be the same. But today we're going to go a little bit further and go into another tip and a little bit more in depth on the forearm angle, specifically in the bottom position, because this is another issue I see in lifters. Both beginner, intermediate, and sometimes even advanced lifters can maybe have their form break down, is that forearm angle in the bottom position. So I'm already here on my laptop. I already have a video pulled up. We're gonna go over a side view and then a front view so you can kind of see what I'm talking about from different angles. And we're gonna go over a good position and then some bad positions, okay? So the first one I got pulled up here is gonna be a good position. So we'll play the video and we'll go down into the bottom. And we'll pause it here in the bottom position, okay? So let's just go over the entire bench press setup and then we'll focus in on the forearms. So since most of us compete in USAPL and IPF, if you're watching these videos, we're gonna have our head down on the bench and the feet flat on the floor. Okay, then across all federations, you always have to have your shoulders down on the bench and your butt down on the bench. And then for any bench press, we're trying to squeeze those shoulder blades together and also pulling them down here towards our hips. We don't want them shrugged up towards our head. We want them pulled down here. That way we are pulling the shoulders back into a safe position, pulling the chest up and getting this nice arch going on, okay? So this is as much as I can arch. Sorry, I'm not one of those people with the monstrous arch, but for whatever arch you're capable of and whatever mobility you have in your shoulder joint, what you're trying to do is squeeze those shoulder blades together as much as you can, pull them down as much as you can, and get this nice big chest and arch while keeping, like I said, that head, shoulders, butt down on the bench, feet down on the ground. Okay, now in the bottom position, we're trying to touch on that lower chest or maybe even on the upper abs. Where you touch is going to depend on your whole setup, including your grip width and how you're built and all that stuff. But one of the things a lot of people mess up is this forearm angle, which is related to how much you're tucking your elbows, where you're touching on your chest, and all these other things. But here, what we're trying to go for, and what I got obviously achieved because it's just the empty barbell, it's easy to do, is we want this vertical forearm and everything is nicely stacked. So the barbell is stacked over the wrist joint, and that's stacked over the elbow joint, okay? Where it is in relation to the elbow joint, there's a little bit of variation there, so it's fine if you're like slightly touching higher or slightly touching lower, because you could be right over the middle of the elbow joint, maybe slightly in front of it or slightly behind, it's fine. But what we don't want is some kind of extreme, which I'm gonna show you the two cases, where you're either going in one direction or the other and you're not stacking things properly, okay? So as we play this out, we'll see I just did my press. I do another example of a good position where everything is stacked nicely in the bottom position. And now let's go to one of the bad positions. So as I play this out, you'll see what I'm trying to do. Obviously, I'm trying to do it on purpose and do an extreme example is I start bending my forearms towards my hips and my feet, okay? So here you can see I'm starting to bend it that way and then kind of dropping it onto the chest. So now here again, like I said, it's an extreme example, but there are some people that do this to a certain degree. Things are not stacked, okay? So here the barbell is all right, it's stacked over the wrist joint, but it's not stacked over the elbow joint at all. And you see you have this forearm angle pointing away from your head. It's pointing towards your hips and your feet, okay? And then the other thing that you see often happens with that, as you saw here, is that it drops in that last bit. So you're staying tight and you're staying controlled during the ascent, maybe 3/4 of the way down, and that last quarter, for whatever reason, losing the tightness and losing this forearm angle, then you're not able to maintain control of the bar and it kind of just drops without control onto the chest. And then you have to kind of like pop it back up and then get back into position, regain tightness and press up. So here I'll play it out, then you press it back up and kind of get the elbows back underneath it. Here's another rep. Again, dropping it there at the bottom. This is a bad forearm angle, things are not stacked properly. And then you'll see I have to like kind of here, you're getting the elbows underneath, but still in a bad position, and here finally getting the elbows back underneath. And then the other way, obviously you can go in the other extreme. It happens less often, but maybe sometimes happens if someone uses a more narrow grip and really focusing on tucking the elbows. Maybe someone taught them they have to really tuck their elbows in and keep their elbows in the entire time. They're scared about flaring their elbows out to the side. You'll get the other extreme, okay? So now you can see the bar is on this side of the elbow, okay? So again, we're not stacked over the elbow, which would be over here. We are on this side of it. So again, you may be able to stay tighter this way, and you may have an easier pressing angle because you're angled back towards your face, but oftentimes like this, it can be still a little bit less efficient when you're pressing and put a little bit more stress in your triceps, because now you're trying to do like a tricep extension or a skull crusher or a JM press, however you want to picture it, because you're not stacking your joints. So you have the elbow joint closed off more than you need to, and you're putting more stress in that tricep. And so you are doing kind of a tricep extension and a press at the same time. With the other direction, when you're dropping it towards your belly, you can maybe think of it as like a front raise. So you're kind of doing a front raise and a press at the same time. So obviously that's not what we want. We want this good position here. Okay, we're in that middle ground. We're not one extreme, we're not the other. We're keeping everything in line so we can have an efficient stacking of the joints, which then can lead to more efficient pressing and this more efficient bar path of pressing back towards the face, getting the bar back over the shoulder joint. When you have it where you fall over towards your hips and your feet, which is what people more often do, then it can be hard to then press back towards your head. So then that's when people have a kind of a weird bar path where maybe they're pressing kind of straight up and then back. So then the push in the back comes too late, or maybe they just try and push straight up, or maybe they do something where they push their elbows back underneath before they start pressing it off their chest to kind of get back into the good position. But for whatever way you're doing it to kind of make up for the bad position, this is not what we want to go for. We want to focus on keeping everything stacked during the entire descent, keeping everything tight, keeping that tension in the muscles, and then that will then can be used to press. Aside from it being inefficient and possibly being able to press less this way, there could be maybe some dangerous sides to it in the shoulder joint, because you are going into this internal rotation. Maybe you're causing some impingement by keeping the elbows out too much, and maybe you're kind of losing your tightness in your shoulder blades. You're not able to squeeze them together and down, because once you're doing that internal rotation and dumping that bar and changing that forearm angle, then the shoulder blade may elevate and go more towards your head. So you're gonna, again, lose some tightness now in your shoulder blades, or maybe increase the risk of injury because you are causing that more internal rotation and maybe impingement as well with the elbow flared out to the side too much. That can maybe cause like a tear in the rotator cuff or something like that. So an important thing about the bottom position of bench press is we want a position of safety. That is why we tuck the elbows. That's why we touch lower on the chest, is to get in a position of safety. So with that, you also want to make sure you're keeping the shoulder blades squeezed together and down, and you're keeping the elbows tucked in, stacked underneath the wrist and the bar, so that you're in that safer position, which you saw in my first position that I have here. All right, so this is your position of safety, where you're squeezing the shoulder blades together, pulling them down, tucking the elbows to be stacked underneath the bar, and touching lower on the chest. Once you start pressing, we're pressing back towards the shoulder joint and getting that J path, because once we're out of this dangerous zone where you're gonna cause that impingement and tears and all that kind of stuff, once we're in this higher range where you're less likely to have those issues, then you want to be over the shoulder joint so that you're in a position of strength. Okay, so in the bottom position, you want to think of position of safety, and then in the top position, a position of strength. So that's why we push back towards the shoulder joint to get rid of this moment arm of the shoulder joint towards the bar. Okay, so we get rid of this. We make it so we're in a stronger position to press, which then lets us finish off that middle range of motion to lock out, pressing it out over the shoulder joint. All right, so now I have this other angle pulled up so you can kind of see the same thing, the good position and then the two bad positions in one extreme and the other from this angle, so you can see how the elbow looks as far as stacking everything from this position. So here is first the good position. So you can see when the bar is on the chest, you can see the bar is low, my palm stacked over the wrist, and then that is also stacked over the elbow, giving us this vertical forearm position in the bottom, okay? And you can see how my elbow is tucked in and the upper arm is angled this way, so it's not out to the side, okay? It's not angled straight out towards the uprights of the rack and the safeties. It's angled in as I tuck my elbows in. And again, same thing on this side. Even though you can't see that side as well, you can see the forearm is vertical and everything is stacked. So that is what we want. All right, there's another rep in the good position. Now we're gonna go to one of the bad positions. And you can see here how I'm starting to point my forearm angle towards my hips and my feet and dumping it onto my belly. So again, obviously I'm showing an extreme example here, but you can see that the bar is not stacked over the elbows, and you can see the elbows are pushed out to the sides much more towards those safeties, okay? So this is a bad position where we're kind of rotating, this internal rotation, okay? We're losing our forearm angle, we're losing our tightness, and we may be causing impingement or loss of tightness, those kinds of things. All right, it's gonna be hard to press back towards the shoulder joint also when the forearm is pointing in the wrong direction. And then here I'll show you the other extreme example. So here in the bottom position, this may still be safe because again, you're maintaining your shoulder blade position, you are tucking the elbows in, you're touching low on the chest, but this is gonna be a less efficient position because again, we're not stacking the bar over the wrist joint and the elbow. You can see that the elbow is inside, okay? This is going to put more of a stress on the triceps. If you're trying to do something like close grip bench press and you're purposely trying to target the triceps, or if you're doing something like skull crushers or tricep push downs, then yes, you do want to keep the elbows in and put more of the focus on the triceps. But if we're trying to do a competition bench or trying to press as much weight as possible, then we want to be in those more efficient positions where everything is stacked and using all our muscles. We want to be using our pecs, our front delts, and our triceps, okay? You may see this position in some extreme benchers. So if you, for example, have a shorter female lifter who has a massive arch and is using a max grip, you may see this slight angle in just because of the way their limb lengths are. They can't get the elbow over the wrist joint and the bar with that max grip and how small they are. But their technique's gonna be a little bit different of how extreme they are with how big of an arch they have, how low of a range of motion they have, that they're not really going through the full range of motion of their shoulder joint, and they're not getting into that bottom end range of motion of the shoulder joint where they could cause that impingement because of how big their arch is, how wide their grip is, how low of a range of motion they are. So you may see this for them and it's not gonna be as much of an issue. In addition, for equipped lifters who want a bench shirt, especially the extreme bench shirts with the low cut collars and everything like that, they have to touch lower on their chest, down towards their belly, and they have to tuck their elbows in more to help be able to bring the bar actually touching their chest. And so you may see this position with an equipped lifter. Again, it's not as much of a dangerous position as the other position because you're not having that internal rotation, but with the equipped lifter, the shirt's gonna help them, especially off that bottom position. The lower range of motion is where the shirt helps them more. So that shirt itself is gonna give them that pop out of the bottom position, and then they can get their elbows back into position. So you'll see them flare their elbows back out, push back towards the shoulder joint, get their elbows back under position in order to be in that position of strength so they can lock it out when the shirt is helping less. So for the equipped lifter, they're still getting that position of safety in the bottom by over tucking the elbows, but that's also allowing them to actually touch in the shirt, and then they're able to get back into that position of strength and lock it out. But for you, who's a raw lifter who doesn't have the shirt, you're not gonna have that shirt benefiting you at the bottom position. So you have to press with your own muscles. And like I said, the focus is gonna be more on triceps. So it's gonna be more difficult because you're putting more of that focus on the triceps and you're not in a good pressing position with the forearms not being vertical and everything stacked. So you're gonna make it a little bit more difficult for yourself. All right, so if you think you have either of these issues, what you can do is you can film from these angles, especially that side view. If you can film it where the plates aren't blocking your forearm angle, then you can see how your forearm angle looks as you're descending, and especially pausing in that bottom position and looking at the forearm angle and if everything is stacking properly in that bottom position, or if it's angled forward towards your hips and your feet or back towards your head. You can also film from this angle here so that you can see from this front angle how the elbow looks in position with the wrist to see again if you're tucking too much or if you're not tucking enough. Putting those two things together, then you can see whether you have an efficient bench press, especially in that bottom range of motion, or if maybe you're causing some kind of loss of tightness and position by changing that forearm angle. And especially if you're pushing it where it's going towards your hips and feet, you're also putting yourself at higher risk of injury because you could be causing some kind of impingement in that bottom position. All right, so hopefully that helped you out. Like I said, I just put up the video as well going over the starting position and where the barbell should be in relation to your body. So if you haven't checked it out, you can go check that out in other videos that I have in my bench press tips playlist. So I have playlists for each of the lifts, and if you're looking for bench press, you can go check out the bench press tips playlist and see me break down different topics and different technical aspects of the bench press that may benefit you to press more weight and hit those bigger weights on the platform. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I put out multiple videos per week, so I'll be seeing you again soon. See you guys.